Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Where Are You Now? The show where we catch up with some of your favorite MUS alumni at the next level athletically. I'm your host, William Pattison, and today I'm joined by 2018 MUS graduate and current Ole Miss basketball player, John McBride. John, happy to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
John, how have you been, and what are some of the things you've been up to over the quarantine time?
Well, just trying to finish out the school year as strong as possible. But also the biggest thing is just trying to keep in shape, keep up, my basketball abilities. Lucky enough, our strength and conditioning coach sends us a workout every week,
Okay.
which really primarily revolves around just body weight and then, running as much as I can and just getting up as many shots in the driveway.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this quarantine time, and sports, and particularly basketball, were definitely hit really hard. I mean, the NCAA tournament was right around the corner, and you and the team were in Nashville for the SEC tournament when word came out that the season and the whole world had been put on hold. So, can you take me back to what those couple of days were like?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we were, I guess, one of two games that lost the day before
Yeah.
everything hit. So we were actually on the road
Okay.
back to Oxford after we lost to Georgia,
Hmm.
and it's coming out that the SEC tournament's not being played, and then the NCAA tournament's not being played. So I think it was a really big shock to everyone, just because I know for a lot of the returners, they're ready to get back to work and get ready for next season. And then when everything gets put on hold, just a lot of uncertainty. But our coaches acted really fast. Administration acted really fast. And they gave us, a set plan for the next, I guess, really it's turned out to be 7 or 8 weeks that we followed. And still, a lot of uncertainty when we're going to return for the summer. But, we're just taking it day by day.
Yeah. So now I want to take it back to your time at MUS, and you played on the team all 4 years in high school. And one of the best things about you was, you improved every year, and so did your numbers. So, how much credit do you give to your coaching staff or the coaches that you had during that time, and how did they push you to be better?
Oh, absolutely. Coach Baki, Coach Sutter, Coach Dover, Spurs with Coach Counts, Coach Torrey, all of them aided in my development, as a player there, especially just the IQ aspect of it. And that's one thing that I'm extremely grateful for Coach Baki, Coach Sutter, and all of them, like shell drill that we did day in and day out. Sometimes it's a pain, but we do that every day at Ole Miss. And it's just being able in the right spot, whether, you're a pass away from the ball to be in the gap or you're 2 passes away, you got to have a foot in the paint. A lot of that came naturally to me once I got to college. And a lot of people aren't taught those fundamentals.
Yeah.
So, I'm very grateful for them, instilling that basketball IQ in me. But also, drill wise, Coach Baki, taught us many drills that I continually use today. So I definitely, give them a lot of credit for where I am today.
You were part of some pretty successful teams at MUS as well, and in particular, your senior season, you and Zach Street helped lead the team to a trip to Nashville for the state semifinals. And can you
Yeah.
tell me about some of your best memories from your playing time at MUS?
Yeah, was able to play as a freshman a few games, and then sophomore season is really when it took off, and that's probably the team I was the closest with in terms of it was our first 21 season in MUS in a couple, I think it was like 10 years. So
Okay.
that was a super special team. And then, junior year with Caleb London, Luke Wilfong, Josh Gray, Zach Street, we had a lot of success early and, just couldn't finish it out. But once senior season got there, I knew that my biggest goal, honestly, going into that season was I had to beat CBHS twice.
Yeah.
Going into that season, I'd never beaten CBHS. And when we went to their place and beat them by 20, and then they came back to our place and won in overtime, those are super special. And then I'd say my all-time favorite game is when we beat McCallie in the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Just my entire goal was, do something great for MUS. I wanted to, get to the state tournament, which has only been done 3 times, I think, in the history of the school.
Mhm.
So, I'd say definitely that quarterfinal game against McCallie would be my all-time favorite memory. But I was just happy to play in, the state tournament. Unfortunately, we couldn't close it out, but it was just great to be there.
And before we talk about your future with the Rebels and more about Ole Miss, we had a couple of good questions from our fans and followers Q&A about
Yeah.
both Ole Miss and MUS. And I'm interested to see what you have to say about a couple of these. So, our first question comes from Blake Sexton, and this might be the most important question I've asked you today. But Blake wants to know who is the better manager between Blake Sexton and Jacob Rickles. But before you answer that, things got a little chaotic in the comments section when Jacob Rickles replied to that saying, "At Blake Sexton, clearly you." But then Matt Kruchek replied saying that Dylan Jones is the right answer. So between
Yeah.
Dylan, Blake, and Jacob, who was the best?
Well, I think all of them were great. Dylan was probably the longest one there
Mm-hmm.
because in my 8th grade year, I was able to participate in varsity 5E. So he was there 8th grade, 9th grade, and 10th grade. And then, Jacob and Blake took over junior and senior year. But I will say Rickles was a lot more consistent than Blake. So I may have to give that one to Jacob. But, all of them were great. Blake, I think, in fact, was the one who got the speakers for the locker room my junior and senior year, which were much needed. But all of them were great, still great friends today.
Well, good to hear they all had something to contribute. So earlier, we talked about how the MUS coaching staff and coaches at MUS really helped you and your game. And our next question comes from Jack Jabor. And Jack wants to know how you benefited from playing for the great coach, Jerry Dover Jr.
Yeah, Coach Dover, great coach. I think I really saw eye to eye with him because, he was a lot, not my age, but, within the range of, 10 years or so. But the biggest thing that I think Coach Dover instilled in me was just a sense of competitiveness. He used to say pressure burst pipes. So it was all about responding to pressure, whether it was, game tying shot or just whatever it was. We always used to play around the world after practice. I think every single day after practice, myself, Zach Street, and occasionally Aiden McKay or just whoever wanted to play. And I'm ashamed to say, I think he got the best of me probably about 85% of the time. But Coach Dover definitely instilled a great sense of competitiveness and being able to respond to pressure.
And as we transition back to Ole Miss now, our next question comes from Gavin Murray. And Gavin wants to know what the difference between the responsibilities and notability of a high school player compared to a Division I athlete is.
Yeah. In high school, obviously, if you have the respect of the school, everyone knows you play basketball really across the board and just whoever comes to the games. But it's, so much smaller. And it was one, I guess, awkward thing that I had to deal with transitioning to college. When I was a freshman, especially being a freshman walk-on, I wasn't expecting many people to know who I am.
Yeah.
But that being said, Ole Miss fans are some of the greatest, most loyal supporters I've ever come across. And, a lot of people knew who I was. And I really didn't know how to react to that because, kids are coming up to you for pictures, asking for a picture. And originally my, thoughts were, oh, well, you got the wrong guy. You want to go to someone else. But, as that's transformed, I realized that, I'm a role model to an extent on the court. Kids look up to us. And, I remember when I was a kid at the Grizzlies game, you don't care if it's, Darrell Arthur, who's, sitting at the end of the bench with a torn ACL. If you get a picture with him, like that's just made your day.
Exactly.
And I've slowly, matured and been able to, accept that responsibility. But that being said, you have to be, people are, have a extra eye on you and you have to ultimately act responsibly and represent the university to the best of your ability.
And finally, we have a question from Wes Vanderslice. And Wes wants to know what it's like to play for Coach Kermit Davis at Ole Miss.
Yeah, Coach Davis, he's a tough coach. The one thing that's across the board for him is that he treats his players all the same. There's no special treatment for our star last year, Brian Tyree, to anybody down to a manager. He coaches me as hard as he coaches Bree, and vice versa. So he's a really tough coach. He's very old school, but one thing about him is that he's the most meticulous guy I know, and that's a very good thing because when it comes to scouts, he knows scouts better than I think the opposing team knows their offense. And he's a great coach, and looking forward to the next 2 years with him.
Well, thank you to everyone who submitted questions for today's Fans and Followers Q&A with John. Please continue to comment and send in questions to have a chance to be featured on the show like these guys were today. And before we go, John, as you know, you're now heading into your redshirt sophomore season. And what are your goals for yourself on the court for this upcoming season?
Yeah, the biggest goals right now is just whatever I can do to help our team get to March Madness. I was lucky enough my freshman year, my redshirt year, that we made the March Madness tournament. That was one of the best experiences that I've ever had. You dream about it, you watch it growing up, and just being a part of it was awesome. So really just myself, it's getting bigger, faster, continually getting bigger, faster, stronger, doing whatever the coaches need me to do, because at the end of the day, winning is the best feeling that anybody can go through. And really my goal for this year is just to do whatever I can to help the team win.
Well, John, really great to hear from you today. Thank you for joining us, and best of luck to you this upcoming season.
Thank you for having me.
And unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for watching Where Are You Now? For John McBride and our producer, Michael Gallagher, I'm your host, William Pattison. Join me again on Tuesday as I talk with former Ole Miss kicker, Gary Wunderlich.